Welcome back to episode 99 of the Your Next Move podcast with your host, me, Kimberly Brown. I am so excited to be here for a bunch of reasons today, but I need to give you a little warning. We are going to be switching things up. I know we are in the midst of a series. It has 5 key parts, and we've done 2, so you may be expecting 3 more episodes. However, did you hear me say this is episode 99? That means my next episode is 100. 100 episodes of the Your Next Move podcast. That is a milestone. If you know anything about podcasts, you know that most folks don't even get to 20 episodes. So the fact that I've gotten to 100, y'all, I'm so excited. So I want to do something special for that episode. And I also feel like this is a series where you may want to get through it and don't want to wait to the end of February to get through all the episodes so you can really have a plan for 2025. So we are going to wrap it up today. I'm going to cover steps 3, 4, and 5. And then next week, we are going to do something a little different, a little special for episode 100. Now, do I know what that little different and special is? I have a little bit of an idea. I'm still working on it. I'm still massaging the idea to get to the thing that's going to make me happy for that 100th episode. But we're not going to worry about that today. Today, we are just going to cover steps 3, 4, and 5 of the self coaching system. If you are just joining us, the framework has 5 steps. We covered clarify your current reality, which is really about doing that self audit so you know where you're coming from. You understand before you start setting goals, you are very clear on where you are and your current reality and what's important to you. Step 2, which is probably one of my favorites, and we're going to dive into a little bit today, is curate your knowledge. And that is going through everything you have learned, you've attended, books, mentors, courses, podcasts, conferences, everything, and figure out what resonates with you right now in this current phase of life and how can we apply it to help you meet your upcoming goals, your 2025 goals. So today we're going to cover step 3, 4, and 5. So craft your plan, commit to consistency, celebrate, and evolve. This is the self coaching process, which is a blend of self assessment, knowledge application, action planning, and just a commitment to continuous improvement. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Step 3, craft your action plan. And this is all about building a realistic and tailored plan that reflects your unique strengths, your goals, and life circumstances. Now, I'm going to need to pause for a moment because I'm about to go on my soapbox because I know most of our big ages, we know how to craft a plan. The issue is that we just don't execute it. We're going to talk a little bit about this in step 4, but why don't we set ourselves up for success so we can flawlessly execute? I refuse to believe it's because we really and truly don't know what to do. I just refuse. If you've been following me on social media, you know that I've been wildly obsessed with Mel Robbins lately. I've been listening to the podcast, reading her new book, The Let Them Theory, listening to her interviews, absolutely positively obsessed. So, on one of the pieces of content, one of the many pieces of content I have consumed from the Mel Robbins podcast, she talked about how most of us don't truly have unique ideas right now. Let that sit for a second. And it's not shade, it's merely a fact. For almost every goal you could think of, there is probably someone who's at least attempted it, if not achieved it. And it's not to say that you can't do it too, because I truly believe that if you want it, if it is on your heart, go do it, go for it. But I'm saying this to reiterate that that means there is a blueprint. Even if it's not as detailed as you need for it to be or you'd like it to be, you can at minimum find a few things to avoid and a few things you could start doing right now. When we talked about curating your knowledge in episode 98, what did you do with all that information? Now is the time. I need you to put it together in chronological order and start taking action. Write it down, put it on your calendar, make a schedule, evaluate your results so you know when it's time to pivot. If you don't have a plan that you are able to go back to, check, and really understand, are you taking action every single day? There's no way that you're going to get to your goals. This is the time where I could talk about SMART goals. I used to have a workbook called Stop Dreaming and Start Planning, where I taught you how to develop a 90-day action plan to achieve your goals. There are so many resources that I can bring up right now, but I want you to craft a plan in a place and in a way that you will follow. I know as an entrepreneur, sometimes when I'm looking to drive enrollment into a program, I have a wall where I put sticky notes. And each time someone enrolls, I write their name on the sticky note. That is how I track and I plan. When I have a launch for something, I have a Google document where I outline every single step that needs to be taken. Sometimes I also use Freeform, which is an Apple app. Was added to the iPhones maybe like less than a year ago. And I finally started playing with it and I can draw out different things in there. I'm also a paper planner girly. So I will whip out a planner, generally the full focus planner or the day designer, and I will iron it all out. I also use digital planning sometimes when I'm doing this with my team. I've used Asana or ClickUp or Airtable. Again, I don't care where you outline the plan because I believe that you can. I just need you to put pen to paper or your fingers to the keys or drawing on the wall. I don't know what you need to do, but I need you to figure out where is this plan going to go and where is it tangible so you can look at it. I need you to see it. I need you to reflect on it. It needs to be top of mind so that you can go to step 4, which is commit to consistency. You have to start maintaining momentum to give yourself motivation and to hold yourself accountable. You have to plan to consistently execute your plan more days than not. Why? Because consistency is what helps you become confident. One more time. Consistency is what helps you become more confident. We hope that we will become confident through the plan. That's not where it happens. The plan allows you to execute, which gives you confidence, but you don't get confidence from making the plan. You can be excited about executing, you could feel ready to execute, but it is really hard to gain momentum, see quick wins, or become confident in your own abilities if you are not taking action consistently. Come rain, come shine, come sleet or snow, you've got to take action. So, what does consistency even look like, right? This is an extremely personal decision. So, I'll give you an example from my own life. Let's talk about this podcast. One of the reasons why I'm releasing this podcast bi weekly is because I can be consistent with bi weekly episodes. Weekly felt a little too overwhelming for me to produce on my own. If you are a long-time listener or watcher of this podcast, you know I had a huge production team and it was a much lighter lift on my end. All I had to do was script my episodes and then I'd work with the team for 3 days to record and then poof, it was done. It was magic. Well, not magic for me. Magic for me, not magic for my team. The team edited the podcast, audio, video, gave me clips, and when it was time to post, I had an assistant who scheduled all of that to go on social media for me. My job was done for 6 months at a time with how I recorded. But as I've talked about before, I'm currently in a season of learning how to do things in my business and honestly in my life with a little less delegation because I want to ensure that I'm more involved in the process so I can control the outcomes a little bit more. So I'm doing it solo. I'm scripting, setting up technology to record audio and video. I'm recording, I'm editing, I'm making clips, I'm scheduling, I'm posting. Y'all, bi-weekly is what I could muster up the strength for and commit to. So when you are thinking about your plan, when you're looking at that action plan, is it set up in a way that you are able to consistently show up? For example, last week I was supposed to record a few episodes to get ahead, but I got sick when I traveled to Colombia for a bachelorette party. Won't be chatting about that, but it was a good time, y'all. So I was at home, staying as close to home and the bathroom as possible, if you get the gist. But I'm committed to getting this content out bi-weekly. So here I am. I'm recording this on Tuesday. It goes live tomorrow on a Wednesday, but I am doing it. I created a plan that allowed for some wiggle room when things happen, when life happens. I actually wrote this script during my early AM working hours. So, another thing I've been chatting about on social is figuring out what works for you. And I found that when I get up at around 5 a.m. and do a little work real quick, I'm able to get through the day with more ease and execute everything else flawlessly. I share all this to say that you have to keep the promises you make to yourself. We need to prioritize the promises that we make to ourselves with the same intensity that we prioritize keeping promises to everyone else. So when you look at your plan, ask yourself, is this something you can commit to consistently? Do you need to give yourself more wiggle room? Do you need to rethink your approach? Do you need more resources, more help? In order to be consistent, you have to set yourself up to do so. So, last but not least, we have celebrate and evolve. So, next to curate your knowledge, celebrating and evolving is probably my favorite part. And also one of the hardest things for me. This is where you really recognize your milestones and prepare to level up using the lessons you learned and refine your approach for whatever your next phase of growth is. And celebrating your accomplishments is so important. When you get on the hamster wheel of goal achievement, it can be hard to get off and acknowledge how far you've come. It's not fair to yourself to keep moving the goalpost when you reach it. Take a moment to look up, pat yourself on the back, and reflect on what's transpired. Reflect on all of the work that you've done. Reflect on the good, the bad, and the ugly. Years ago, I had a mentor tell me that I was way too focused on achievement. In the moment, I honestly didn't quite understand what was wrong with that. But in hindsight, I get it. Through therapy, I've uncovered that goal achievement and success was when I felt loved and appreciated and valued the most from my family. I became known for essentially doing the right thing. Sometimes the reward was simply acknowledgement, and other times it was more tangible, like I'd physically get a reward for whatever my good deeds or my accomplishment was. And because of this, I developed a habit of constantly striving for the next thing. Before I reached a goal, I already had the next goal in mind, and I never gave myself a moment to appreciate the success that I had. From the outside looking in, my friends would say things like, "Oh my God, girl, Kim always got it together." If I was struggling, like, "Girl, you gonna figure it out. You always do." When I did one thing, it was like, "Okay, friend, what's next? I know you got a plan." I remember when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was already like, "Okay, so when am I gonna get a master's?" Like, I knew I had another milestone. I didn't sit and be like, "Girl, you just graduated with your bachelor's in 3 years instead of four. Like, you should be excited. You need a moment to take this in." And I've legit trained my community to know that I'm always on to the next. So now I'm in a season where I'm working on celebrating my successes along the way, literally building out time to pause, reflect, and rejoice as I'm working toward whatever the goal is. Sometimes it's literally a block of time on my calendar that I use to review what transpired. I used to be in a coaching program where they had us do what they called after action reviews. So, whenever you had a milestone or you had a goal, you built out a plan, you consistently did all the actions. At the end of whatever that milestone was, you did an after action review. So, I've gotten into the habit of taking times to, at minimum, journal my experience going through something. What went right? What went wrong? Think about in the workplace when you may be working on a launch or a sprint, as they call it, to achieve some goal, launch a new product, a new service, whatever it is. When it's launched, there generally is a meeting afterwards where you sit down. It's like, okay, what went well? What did not go well? What can never happen again? What do we need to replicate a million times because it was so incredible? We can do the same things in our lives for whatever the goal is that you're working toward. And it can be as simple as taking a day to celebrate. Sometimes I schedule things with friends. They don't even know that I'm celebrating, but I surround myself with people who make me feel good. I love going to Kava. So I may call a close girlfriend and be like, "Hey, you want to go to Kava for lunch today? Or you want a co working day?" And that's me celebrating and giving myself a moment of joy. But I don't even share with that person whatever the thing is. I'm just enjoying the company and the vibes. And I know this is part of my celebration. And sometimes I want to share it more openly, and I may share it with my partner or do a whole night out, or sometimes I'll go to the spa by myself. Whatever it is, it's important that you pause and appreciate the wins and lessons. Back when I was doing therapy and talking a lot about this desire, this strive that I had, especially when it led to me burning out a while ago, one of the things I did was start to track my wins. And I had a list that I would update every single time I had a win. So I can reflect back and be like, girl, like, you're okay. Like, you can rest today. You have done enough. You can take a moment. And it allowed me to appreciate everything I've done and generally make me excited about what's to come next. So, y'all, that is step 5. So, what is your next move, right? Because, this is the Your Next Move podcast. What is your next move? I want you to ask yourself, what is your big thing for 2025? What is it? What is your plan to achieve whatever that big thing is? And how will you celebrate yourself when you finish the big thing? Those 3 simple things. And your big thing, I'm saying big thing, but I don't want you to think like, oh my gosh, my idea is not big enough. It's whatever is important to you. Your big thing could be making more time to rest this year. Okay. Because we talk a lot about, is it your hustle season or your rest season? We did a podcast on that years ago. Just whatever the thing is that means most to you. And if you need more help, I am opening up the opportunity to be coached live on this podcast again. We have, I think, 2 or 3 episodes where I coach someone live, and I would love to do that again. If you're interested in being coached on a future episode of this podcast, please head to the show notes for the link to submit your information. And I'm happy to chat about all things career and leadership development, entrepreneurial ventures, goal setting, time management, you name it. These sessions are 100% complimentary. All you're doing is sharing yourself with my audience at the same time. So I'm putting that out there, and the link is in the show notes. So before we close for the day, I want to share something I'm doing that works. I really enjoy this new segment, y'all. Once I get this production down, I may add some like little music or whatever else. But right now, you're just going to hear my voice and hear me say, we're moving to the next segment. So something I'm doing that works, I mentioned it a little earlier, is that I am waking up from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. daily and working. This is a hustle season for me. And I'm not saying this in that I need you or I believe that you should also get up at 5 a.m. I want you to find the time in the day that works best for you, when you feel the most confident, the most alive, the most alert. And I want you to set yourself up for success during that time. I have found, I've been doing this for about a week and a half so far. I am catapulting my day forward by getting so much done between those hours. Because, and if you remember when I talked about writing my book, I did a lot of my writing really, really early in the morning. So there's something about my brain. I literally roll out of bed, I go to the bathroom, I make a cup of coffee, and I get to my office and I'm running through things. Easy peasy, 1, 2, 3. So I invite you to think about, what is the time of day where you feel the best, when your brain is on fire? It could be 5 a.m., 5 p.m., 3 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever the time is. And how can you use that time toward your goals? So with that, as always, I thank you for being here with me. If you are a listener of this podcast, whether this is your first episode or your 99th episode, I invite you to leave a review wherever you hear this podcast. Watch or listen, I guess, wherever you watch or listen to this podcast. And may your next move be your very best move. I will see you next time for episode 100.